The British man slowly advances toward Dodge, a weapon clenched in his hand. Step by step, he closes the distance. Suddenly, Dodge hears a voice behind him. He turns and sees the police. The British man immediately lowers his weapon and pretends nothing is wrong, casually telling the officers they were just fooling around. But the police notice the blood on Dodge's forehead and ask if he's being threatened. At that moment, the British man shoots Dodge a warning look. Bound by the rules of the game, Dodge has no choice but to play along and say he's fine. The officers tell Dodge to get his wound checked and begin to leave. Seizing the moment, Dodge slowly backs away, step by step, until he disappears into the crowd. The hunter watches his prey escape right in front of him, helpless to stop it. By now, the game has been going on for 5 hours. Meanwhile, Dodge's wife notices something terrifying. $1 million has suddenly appeared in her husband's bank account. Dodge steals a bicycle from the roadside and pedals at full speed. As he cuts through an alley, a bearded man suddenly lunges out and tackles him to the ground. The attacker pulls a knife from his ankle and stabs toward Dodge. Dodge barely dodges the strike, scrambles to his feet, and runs. The man's ankle gets caught in the bike wheel, trapping him. He hurls the knife after Dodge, but misses. Dodge sprints into a subway station, hoping to lose his hunters underground, but the moment he reaches the platform, he spots the British man again, standing across the crowd, waiting. As the train arrives, Dodge pushes through the passengers and dives into a subway car just as the doors close. Once again, he escapes by seconds. The passengers stare at him, shaken by what they just witnessed. With nowhere else to go, Dodge enters a church and slips into a confession booth to catch his breath. Through the curtain, he notices a shadow approaching. Instinctively assuming it's another hunter, Dodge yanks the curtain open and tackles the man, striking him repeatedly. A priest rushes out and stops the attack. It turns out the man was only there to pray. Terrified, he flees the church, but Dodge soon realizes the horrifying truth. The priest himself is one of the hunters. Every exit has already been chained shut. There's no escape. The priest raises a hammer and attacks. With no combat experience, Dodge is quickly overwhelmed. Another swing of the hammer accidentally breaks the door lock. Dodge tries to flee, but the priest slams him back down. As the final blow comes, the hammer gets wedged in the iron door. Dodge kicks the door open, traps the priest's arm in the gap, and struggles free. The priest headbutts Dodge, knocking him down again, then lunges forward, only to be kicked away. Dodge slams the door shut and jams it with a metal rod, but the priest smashes the hammer into Dodge's leg. Screaming in pain, Dodge yanks the hammer out and limps away. Outside, he calls the game organizer, begging to quit, but the answer is cold. Once the game starts, it cannot be stopped. After a few empty words of encouragement, the call ends. Dodge hastily bandages his leg, but the pain is unbearable. Every few steps, he collapses. When no one is around, he sneaks into the trunk of a parked car. The driver never notices and drives off, but soon Dodge realizes the horrifying rule. The hunt only exists within the city of Detroit. Leaving the city would mean breaking the rules, and the game would never end. He pounds on the trunk. The driver stops, opens it, and a man jumps out, terrifying the couple inside. Dodge frantically asks if they're still in the city. The wife reaches for her phone to call the police, but Dodge snatches it and throws it away. As he leaves, he notices 2 children in the back seat. It reminds him of his pregnant wife. After apologizing, Dodge follows the train tracks back into the city. At a gas station, he steals a taxi and drives toward home. Meanwhile, his wife panics at home, staring at the unexplained $10 million in their account and fearing the worst. Just as Dodge reaches the house, a motorcycle charges toward him. He leaps aside at the last second. Before he can explain anything, Dodge jumps back into the taxi and speeds off. The hunter gives chase. A throwing knife slashes the tire. The hunter jumps into the car and wraps a wire around Dodge's neck. Dodge slams the accelerator and crashes into a concrete barrier. The attacker is revealed. It's the priest. This time, Dodge doesn't hesitate. He picks up a stone and ends it. Dodge escapes to the harbor and boards a cruise ship. He asks a server about the route and learns it only circles the harbor for 40 minutes. Relieved, he heads inside and climbs to the second deck. The buffet looks irresistible. As he reaches for water, the same female server suddenly appears, revealing herself as an assassin. She knocks him down with a kick. The fight erupts, violent and desperate. At last, Dodge forces her backward, straight into the flames. Dodge finally takes advantage of the moment and shakes off the female assassin. He sprints toward the deck, but she isn't done yet and chases after him. She shouts a warning as she runs. Once the ship passes the bridge, it will enter another city. and if Dodge leaves Detroit, the rules will be broken, the hunt will never end. As the cruise ship approaches the bridge, Dodge makes a desperate move. He climbs to the highest point of the ship and leaps upward, gripping the underside of the bridge, hanging in midair. The assassin follows, grabbing onto the bridge as well, inching closer to him. When she's within reach, Dodge suddenly kicks out with all his strength. She loses her balance and plunges into the water below. After pulling himself free, Dodge returns to the city and continues running. There are only 5 hours left in the hunt. In his current condition, he isn't sure he'll survive to the end. Without realizing it, he wanders into an abandoned playground. Spotting a puddle of water on the ground, his thirst overwhelms him. He doesn't care how filthy it is, he drinks anyway. Just then, his phone rings. His location is instantly exposed once again. Exhausted and furious, Dodge has no choice but to keep moving. He flees into a nearby slum, where he's suddenly attacked from behind and knocked unconscious. When he wakes up, several gang members are standing over him with guns. They've discovered the massive sum of money in his account and assume he's a fake drug dealer, especially after finding only ordinary medication on him. Dodge doesn't waste time explaining. He warns them he's being hunted and that staying near him will put everyone in danger. They don't believe him. A knock echoes at the door, and the room goes silent. As one gang member moves to check, Dodge slips into the bathroom. The fifth hunter has arrived. Dodge locks the door and tries to escape through the window, only to see the bearded man climbing up the drain pipe outside. Trapped, Dodge freezes. Suddenly, gunfire tears through the door. Dodge crouches and shields his head. A long-haired man enters. Because firearms are forbidden by the game's rules, he pulls out a high-voltage stun weapon instead, but before he can strike, he's shot. One of the gang members, barely alive, uses his last strength to take the hunter down with him. Dodge shoves the body aside, carefully steps outside, and grabs a handgun from the floor. After confirming the area is clear, he recovers his belongings and escapes. As he runs out, he nearly collides with a man in glasses. The cleanup crew, "Run, Mr. Times," the man mutters. There are only 2 hours left. Back in the control room, the organizer watches Dodge enter a hospital. Before the game began, Dodge had been told he was terminally ill. That was why he joined, to secure his pregnant wife's future. He shows a nurse his medication and asks if it's for cancer. She tells him it's just a standard painkiller, and there's no record of him ever being a patient. That's when Dodge realizes the truth. It was all a lie. Furious, he calls the organizer, who calmly admits everything. The illness was fake. Even Dodge's best friend had been bribed to secretly drug him. The organizer promises that once the hunt ends at sunrise, Dodge will receive over $24 million and live happily ever after. Dodge immediately calls his wife, explains everything, and tells her to get away from his friend and go to the place where they first met. She tries, but is stopped. Pretending she's thirsty, she waits until the friend leaves to get water, then escapes. At the meeting spot, a police car pulls up. 3 men step out and try to take her away. At that moment, Dodge limps into view. They use his wife as leverage, forcing him to continue the game. Powerless, Dodge watches her disappear. Now he knows ending the game is the only way to save her. She's taken to the control room, where the organizer remains calm, even polite, despite her rage. Meanwhile, Dodge heads to his father's abandoned factory. He's done running. Inside the factory, Dodge sets traps, restores the power, and flips the main switch. A glowing sign lights up on the rooftop. It's a signal. The bearded man, the British hunter, the female assassin, all 3 see it, and they converge on the factory at the same time. The movie ends here. Thanks for your watching. Leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out.